All right, well, thank you everyone for tuning into our talk and coming to our talk. And special thanks to everyone at ICS Village, Tom, Bryson, and all the volunteers that make this happen. You guys are fantastic and appreciate all that you do. So today we're actually talking apprenticeships in cybersecurity, and we have a lot to get through in a short period of time. Next slide, please.
So what we're going to talk about today is our building apprenticeship systems in cybersecurity, which is what we call our BASIC project. Just a quick overview, it's a U.S. Department of Labor grant, $4 million, granted through the lead Southern Utah University. Next slide, please. So we're going to give a little bit of our background, and then we'll go forward more about the grant. So Dennis and I came together in 2009 through another project, which is the U.S. Department of Energy Smart Grid grant, which was my intro to cyber. So that was, I'll never forget that. I was in Idaho with Idaho Power, and Idaho National Lab gave a presentation on cyber, and I was like, what is this? So that was actually a $5 million grant that reached to 11. Since then, before then, whatever, I've been involved in $35 million of federal grants, 2 cyber ones. So this is the new one is really my next step into cyber, but consider me the rookie, please. I don't know it. It scares me. I've learned a lot today, so thank you all. So what we did then was pull together the 4 states, or 5 states. That one was Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and Utah, with Idaho National Lab sort of being our cyber basic intro.
Yeah, so while I was actually also working on this grant on behalf of Washington State Department of Veteran Affairs, because I just transitioned off of active duty, and they actually needed someone that understood control systems and IT. And I was using my GI Bill to go to school for power systems and control, and I also enlisted in the Washington International Guard to learn about IT because I saw this convergence coming, and that's the best way I could kind of piecemeal some training in place. And how that kind of ended up, here is while I was in the Washington National Guard, we transitioned into a cyber ops mission. I went through their network warfare training, and then a unit in Washington State specialized in critical infrastructure protection. Like, hey, you know some things, come over here, help us with the class. So in 2010, I actually started developing a class for cyber operators on how to do assessments in critical infrastructure. So just cyber operators have their base level understanding. We were kind of just doing the OT kind of upgrade skill set in there. And it became very successful and was adopted by the Air Force to actually become their special mission qualifier. And it kind of lives on in the Air Force right now. So I took that skill set and all the missions I conducted and rolled it into a 5-credit class at Everett Community College, kind of based off of the survey mission. And now we're running it for the 3rd time at Everett. And the big takeaway from that class is, in addition to learning the fundamentals of OT in an IT environment, you're also learning how to do a security assessment with real OT devices as your final project. So with this kind of background, we kind of got into BASIC, and that's the grant we're going through today. And originally, EVCC was our original partner when they submitted the grant. Money dropped February 28th, 2020, and Everett had cold feet, understand the reason why, global pandemic, grants. So we withdrew from that, and then Barb was kind of carrying the torch without me until I just spent all year trying to actually get back into the grant, and kind of here we are. Next slide, please.
So these are the grant partners in this particular grant, with Southern Utah University as the lead. I represent Washington State University Energy Program. CSW is a corporation for a skilled workforce based in Michigan. They're a national competency workforce association. EnergySec, I think some of you saw Steve Parker here today. He had to leave, fly home, but they bring the income workers, cybersecurity, grid modernization. We have the Regional Education Training Center based in Centralia, Washington. They're our labor liaison. You cannot do workforce development in the Pacific Northwest without including labor. So they have brought labor to the table. And then, of course, Dennis representing Everett Community College. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you. Project goals, there's just 3 major simple goals. That's to enhance current apprenticeships by adding critical cybersecurity competencies to our training programs. So as an old apprenticeship coordinator that goes way back to the mid-90s, that's really a critical step and really, really a challenging step to get into already approved apprenticeships. So while we're working on that, we're also stepping back and looking at new state and federally registered cyber programs, and then developing an articulated career pathway, which Dennis will talk to in a minute. Next slide. So these are our target industry sectors and occupations. We're looking at advanced manufacturing and energy. So those we've learned through all of our grants that makes a nice sector, collectively a cluster, if you will. And then I've learned today just how interdependent all of those are. So in cyber, so it's worked well. And the other thing we learned in starting with our states, the advanced manufacturing industry in Utah, which is actually the fiscal lead for this, there are 300 small and mid-sized manufacturers in the state of Utah. That was a huge aha to me. But as what they're doing, they're facing that rapid technology transformation, and they require that cybersecurity workforce. Just have to tell a quick story. Early on in the grant, we were on a Zoom call with one of the small manufacturers in Utah, and he wasn't sure he wanted to participate. He said, I think I'm just going to wait and see if I get hacked or not. I just don't want to step out and do this. And that's sort of been on the manufacturing side, the thinking. So that again is really scary as we go forward. So, and then I've also learned how difficult it is to find that skilled workforce in cybersecurity. So how do you recruit and retain that workforce? So grow your own. That's what we're trying to do. Next slide. So for any of you that know anything about apprenticeship, the Department of Labor considers 5 hallmarks that this is what you need to have the basic of a strong apprenticeship program. It will not get approved. An apprenticeship program will not get approved by a state apprenticeship council or the U.S. Department of Labor without these 5 hallmarks being addressed. Paid work, remember, it's on the job. This is not an internship. It is an apprenticeship where they're paid on the job. Their on-the-job learning is part of it. There's classroom learning, which is really called an apprenticeship-related supplemental instruction. Here's, again, the new learning in this industry. Mentorship and supervision. Mentorship is what we keep hearing is critical, but mentorship in this industry is really hard to find. So these small utilities, these small PUDs, these small manufacturers don't have the skill set on their staff to be the mentors. So what we're doing right now is building a mentorship pool that can help as we grow this pool of apprentices going forward.
Yeah, and you had a big win with this, didn't you? Where you can actually go outside the organization due to the lack of in-house SMEs. Right. So that's something, the hurdle that they cleared prior to me coming back to the grant through DOL. So that was a huge win on our behalf. So now we can go anywhere in the nation to actually build this pool.
Good.
Is there any binning of mentors? Like they must be in the industry sector, or they must be within the state, or just you find someone who knows cybersecurity and they count?
Yeah, I think so that's a really good question. And I can't answer that all yet. But what we've got our basic, we're going to talk about that, our basic leadership team that will help us vet those people. But this was a big deal to get the U.S. Department of Labor to agree to this, because mentors have always had to be on the staff, direct supervision of the apprentice. So I'm an old line apprentice coordinator, where you look at a crew of 4 journeymen and 1 apprentice. That's the kind of hands-on that we get, that they're used to getting. So to go to the DOL and say, we can't find mentors, we had to justify that. So that was a huge step. And then, of course, the credential at the end, the industry recognized credential. So that's where we're at right now. Next slide. Okay, achievements unlocked. We've made, so in spite of COVID, we don't want to blame the whole world falling apart on COVID. But We have gotten 2 federally registered programs established in Utah for the manufacturing sector, which was a huge aha. And then and they're both cybersecurity technician 1-year programs. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dennis to talk about our amazing advisory team.
Yes, so, you know, when I was working with Barbara and the team in 2009 with the whole Smart Grid grant, the whole thing that they kept repeating over and over and over is industry-driven, 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 academia, take notes and respond. So when I came on, my inner Barbara was like, where's your industry advisory board? You know, we need SMEs. They didn't really have SMEs within their network. But one of the first things we started to do was reach out to many people who are presenting here today and walking around the hallways and built a really, really amazing group of professionals that know OT security. Tom Van Norman is the chair of that board. Daniel Jablinski has been absolutely amazing, you know, and many, many more that are actually kind of assisting us to make sure that the products that we develop go through that filter to make sure that the individuals who have been doing this for a while and doing from the security side are actually the ones doing our quality assurance and checking things off before it goes to the next phase of approval for these apprenticeships. So, you know, it's been very, very helpful for us to do outreach, develop connections, develop partnerships, gather input, and we really want to empower this CAT to actually sign off and advocate for the work that we're doing. Next slide. Next slide. All right, Barbara.
Okay, Washington State is always different. So Washington State is considered the gold standard in apprenticeship, and they have a state apprenticeship program. So I keep saying I have a new respect for the U.S. Department of Labor. If in 50 different states, there's 50 different ways of launching and registering apprenticeship programs. So Washington has their own model where they require oversight committees. It 4 to 10 members, but half have to be union and half exempt. So here's where the unions come in, okay? So now is why we have a labor liaison, right? Okay.
We have great labor liaisons.
Right.
I'm just figuring, where's the cyber union?
Yeah. And then, well, actually we do. It's Washington State. Okay. So 50% required to be subject matter experts within that discipline on that committee. So, and their role is to validate the job functions and the competencies, validate the related supplemental instruction, and submit to the Washington State Apprenticeship Council, which is governed by Washington State Labor and Industries. So just talk about a layer of governing. So our committee is formed. We're moving forward in Washington State with the IBW 77 oversight. We have Grant PUD, Grace Harbor PUD, which is a union cybersecurity person, Tacoma Power, and then the IBW Local 77 training director. 75% are subject matter experts, and we only are required to have 50, but we have 75. They're meeting weekly now. In fact, we missed that meeting yesterday, which was, they carried on without us, so that's good. So that's where we're at in Washington, hoping to submit that by fall. So that's our summer project.
Great. Next slide. So this is kind of like what we're looking at how to get there. So, you know, we have this pool that's building of applicants that are interested in possibly going into a cybersecurity apprenticeship within an industrial environment. And you could be a customer service representative, you could be a meter technician, you could already be a member of the IBEW, or you could be a student at Everett Community College or a student really anywhere. So really phase 1 is we identified the Idaho National Labs online training. It's work at your own pace. It's great. I run criminal justice students through it right now to kind of get them proficient with some like OT security skills. Great feedback, works really well. So once they kind of get through there and they decide, hey, this is a little bit more for me, I'd like to kind of maybe try the next thing. And mind you, this is proposed. This is kind of where we're going, but this jello is starting to solidify quite a bit. So cyber awareness, you know, we're hearing a lot about that today. Cyber awareness can be for really anyone within this industry, you know, whether you are answering phones or you are, you know, in the substation doing more technical tasks, not even touching any sort of IT devices, still that cyber awareness can actually benefit your organization in the long run, because the more people understand about cybersecurity, the better off you are. And one kind of strategy that I'm kind of looking at exploring is, these industries really know physical safety. They understand physical safety. Can we possibly intertwine cybersecurity and physical safety? Because we've actually seen malware in the wild that is designed to cause human harm. So that might be an angle that we can get to kind of maybe, kind of strong arm some of these organizations to understand that this is serious business. We should start kind of moving forward. And once again, this is proposed. We'll be giving this certificate to our advisory board next Friday to kind of kick the tires. And we have 3 classes that we're kind of proposing being part of a certificate. And this is actually embedded in a traditional IT associate's degree, really kind of anywhere. And, the 2 classes are very unique to Everett Community College, which is our assessing and securing industrial control systems, where students learn how to do a basic security assessment. Information and cyber warfare is just a global overview, the real threats, case studies of things that have actually happened, separating fact from Hollywood, from inaccurate reporting. Really understanding, what are the real world threats, what are the real world impacts, and what does that mean to our way of life here in the United States? And then ethical hacking. So I feel like having experience on keyboard performing these actions it's in a learning experience that students walk away from and they see what they have done. And ethical hacking, when you're talking about setting up your VMs and popping off like MS-08067 is always like a game-changing experience. However, what Everett has been able to get is through Tom and Grim, we have a full 15-foot wall, which is a cyber range, and a handful of industrial trainers. So our students, they just don't like pop a VM. They actually are interacting with a water system, turning it off, denying control, denying monitoring, and they actually get to perform that. And when they have that lived experience, seeing that this is something that is achievable, I did that, they're different. That they have experienced that. It's no longer theory, and that is just one of the greatest benefits of having that technology right there. So we're rolling a lot of our industrial trainers into traditional IT classes like Security Plus. We're adding the different industrial trainers to that, ethical hacking, that's a component of that. So our information cyber warfare class is like overview, very concept. Assessing the security control systems, we don't get very technically deep right now because we have a lot of ground to cover. And we also want to encourage business students, computer science students, and mechatronics students to also funnel through that class. But the technical chops are really going to be in our traditional IT classes. And with this proposed pathway, students going through our program could land into an apprenticeship. They could possibly go into a cybersecurity position, which is an apprenticeship, or we're entertaining or exploring substation wiremen, relay tech, more jobs in the electrical sector that actually touch and configure, intelligent devices. And then we have transfer opportunities because we're a 2-year school. You're not getting to cybersecurity in 2 years. But that's the beauty of the actual mentorship, is once you start getting through our program and you actually can start doing things on keyboard, that's when you start really working with your mentor and start doing things. And while students are actually kind of learning IT and getting on the job experience, they could be exploring a handful of different transfers directly to cybersecurity programs so they can kind of pivot and they're in beyond path. And for us, we feel like this is a really good pathway or a series of pathways because students have different options depending on where they kind of want to go in here. Do they want to go directly into the utilities, or do they want to actually take a break and then go to a 4-year program, or go directly on path? So this is kind of what's being proposed, and we're going to be kind of running through our internal review and approval process. Next slide. So this is what kind of makes Everett unique right now. So we like to brag. Colleges do like to brag when they're the first with things. And we are the first community college with a broad range of this equipment. And what you see right there is the 10-foot wall modeled very much after Tom's amazing ICS Village that you see everywhere. However, what you don't see is the third 5-foot section because we haven't had a chance to really kind of take a picture of it and fit it into something that fits in cleanly into a PowerPoint presentation. But we do have an HVAC system that bolts into that as well. And then we have over 25 small and group-based trainers down there. So the one on the left is just a standalone PLC with some I/O. And then the one on the right has industrial firewall, it has industrial switch, a PLC and input-output, and a virtual server under the hood. So that's where students will be able to do a range of different modified, like Security Plus, ethical hacking exercises, and work on real things. So we do a lot in virtualized and training, a lot of box labs, which, you kind of need at some point for that crawl phase. But we want students to actually kind of poke the edges, think outside the box, break things, reset things, and really kind of tinker. And then also what our philosophy is, students will actually when you're doing your CAN box labs, it's always like you're this business, that business, it's traditional IT stuff. But we want to actually expose students to the concepts of, these critical systems are in everything. They're in water, they're in agriculture, they're everywhere, and get them exposure to that. So if they do bump across them in the wild, it's not like this new foreign thing that they're scared of. They're comfortable with the technology. And that's kind of like one of the big philosophies that we're really starting to wrap into the fabric of our program now that we have students returning to campus and we can actually start getting some work done. Next slide. So, outreach, awareness, and creating of our apprenticeship pool. So we are in an endless loop of building partnerships with employers, OT security professionals, and high school programs. I think the big thing we're really hungry for is that employer piece. We can really train students to do anything in a community college program, but it doesn't do our students any good if there's no jobs at the end of the pipe. That's why we're kind of baby stepping into this with some sort of operational technology security, where we have a 5-credit class, which we're actually looking at making a requirement for our program. So students will be required to be exposed to this as they move forward, because we feel that it's so critical that they get this, that it has to be part of the fabric of our program in order to actually start making significant changes of the future workforce moving across all the different sectors everywhere we go. And hearing talks about how everything's connected now, buildings, ag, it has to be part of the fabric of this program. It's that important. We need more people that get it, and we're kind of doubling down on that approach. One of the other big wins that Everett has is we have a 4-day in-person annual ICS CTF that's going to be coming next May. It was scheduled for this May, but we really just couldn't get it off the ground with COVID and logistics and everything. But that is 2 CTFs developed by the amazing team at Grimm, one at a high school level, one at a college level, and they're 2 cyber physical challenges where students interact with these devices, they get to compete, and we're looking at actually making it like more of a conference type feel, where at the end of the day, we can have sponsored talks, different vendors come in, they're learning more in the evenings, they're building community, they're growing their network, resume workshops, everything. They're not just going back to their rooms playing Fortnite until the next day. It is kind of a big event. Energy Sec is also adding cyber awareness to the Foundations for Water, Energy, and Educational STEM high school program. So they're also working in high school outreach as well. And Everett is also kind of like really working with trying to hook into the different high schools in our area to get them interested at an early phase so they're exposed to this as well. And I have tons of different initiatives kind of kicking around my inbox right now, too early to get into, but there's a lot of interest in this space, which makes the employer piece that much more important. We can have a big interested pool, but we have to start working with employers for them to get it and kind of start working with hiring our students. Speaking of conferences and podcasts, thank you, Bryson Bort. Thank you, Tom. Every time we get out in front of the community, my LinkedIn gets attention, and that has absolutely 100% benefited the work that Everett Community College is doing and this basic grant. If it wasn't for us getting out there and presenting this work, we wouldn't have the advisory board as robust as it is right now. And when we're getting a lot of people rallying behind what we're doing, and it's incredibly helpful for our program. And I can't thank you guys enough for giving us this stage. Social media. We're a community college. We do our best. Thank you, marketing. We've actually got a good presence now through LinkedIn and Facebook. We're trying to get out there. That is, something we're getting better at. And one thing that we're rolling out right now is, Tom and the volunteers of ICS Village have fantastic CTFs. So you spin them up at different conferences, but I'm like, hey, I'm trying to recruit college students from Washington State and all over to get interest, get some sort of cyber awareness. Can we possibly work and develop some sort of outreach strategy to get your CTFs nationwide, access to different colleges? So students were like, hey, I'm interested in industrial cybersecurity. Here's something for me to sink my teeth into. And we feel that that's a good approach, because if I want to go, college to college, be like, hey, here's a 5-credit class, canned, ready to go. Oh, what does it map to? We don't have any room. It's got to go through approval process. We need an instructor. And there's just, it's challenging to actually kind of implement it that way. But if we have these really great CTFs that we can go directly to student clubs and be like, here you go, student clubs, 14 days before an ICS Village sponsored event, you got access to the CTF. And we whitelist them. It's only colleges, that actually play. And then during the event, it spins up, and then they can compete against industry professionals and other colleges. So it's something that we're looking at doing for a broad brush approach to actually get more interest, more awareness kind of circulating up at a national level, and then, have a jump point where students can go and I want to take the next step and maybe invest in this for a career. What are my pathways? So we're doing a lot on the outreach piece as well. Yes.
Question. All right. So I think there's a role for where students can ultimately play towards a solution. It's one thing to go and hack all the ISIS, another thing actually come up with a way to mitigate those vulnerabilities. Would you think might be a student group there at Everett that'd be willing to take a look at what we've done with a nonprofit framework? We've designed an OT framework for protections. Would you guys be willing to take a look at it and red team it and see where there might be ways to improve it?
Yeah.
We're in blue water right here. No one has developed an OT framework that's for applications across the entire built environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're looking at it as a safety framework.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can connect afterwards. Our students usually get to the ethical hacking level, within our program. So they're really not at full pen tester type capability. They got the fundamentals.
Yeah.
But depending on what you're trying
Pen
to
testing is only a small part of our framework.
Okay.
So we're basically created a series of controls, 240 of them, that really get to the full range of OT security and safety.
Okay.
So the question is that obviously you got some smart kids in the Everett program and also the program in the country. Take a look at it and see who wants to volunteer. First of all, we also have, as David knows, some of the top OT cyber companies in our nonprofit.
Okay.
The Zomi, Tenable, the list goes on.
Perfect.
Probably good for your students to want to get exposure to those companies.
You read my mind.
Why would we could not set up an opportunity to brief you guys and show you our framework?
Absolutely.
You can beat the hell out of it.
Oh, students are excellent at that. You got the right person. If you give students the ability to beat something up, I guarantee you, they'll take it to heart.
Okay, Danielle, you listening? She's on the call right now.
I'm here.
So
Hi, Danielle.
We'll connect afterward. I'll give you some background on the nonprofit and the work we're doing. So.
Awesome. That sounds great. Thank you very much. So see, getting out there, you get opportunities. So it just keeps happening. So awesome. Thank you. Next slide. All right. You can conclude.
No, questions, comments, thoughts. We're open for whatever feedback you could have for us.
So have you looked at coupling that with any specific certifications through the 2-year? With Security Plus and Network Plus, anything like that? The reason I ask, part of my role is, community outreach, trying to build a pipeline, and one of the schools that we're working with is actually all the way down at the high school level in San Antonio. I'm not sure if you've worked with them before with ICSI. ICSI is a high school in San Antonio.
Okay.
So they're graduating, I think it's 90 a year right now, cyber. And when they come out of high school, they're coming out Security Plus, Network Plus, and CCNA straight out of high school.
High school?
Correct.
That's.
Which I look at and go, we want to get them early and get them down a career path. We get them there, step them into learning a little bit more in OT, and then moving on. I can almost hire straight out of high school at that level.
That's impressive. So we do cover, and we kind of map to a lot of industry certifications, and that's been one of our kind of formulas for success at Everett for quite some time. Is students, as they actually go through our program, they take A+ material, but then as part of their tuition, a fee, they actually are eligible for a voucher at a much lower rate. So they actually, at the end of each quarter, they request a voucher. They test at their own time, they form study groups, and they get their A+, Sec+, CCNA, and we've had a few students earn CYSA and Pen Test Plus as well.
Okay.
So that's kind of the big ones out of our program, but yeah, that's something that we push, you know, within our program is like, you know, in addition to getting academic credit, you can get industry certifications. And, you know, we kind of let them know that will help you get to HR, but that's not going to land you your job, you know, so we kind of also let the reality of like how those certifications really kind of relate to the job hunting approach, but yes, very much.
So, and also the Utah, both of the Utah reps have CompTIA A+ built in as the baseline. And then they're articulated that with the Southwest Tech CompTIA classes and as well as SUU CompTIA, and then into SUU's bachelor's three classes.
The reason I ask is I think it does create a career opportunity. Those of us that do a lot of military work, the mandate's under 8570 M, right?
Yes.
So it's the work we do in the military, at least design side, is very prescriptive, which allows us to take those more entry level and show them that path. And I can tell you across the community, there is major shortages in staff to even cover that work, both on the military side and those of us on the contractor side, you know, providing support.
A lot of our students are prior service and already come with like cleared for different levels of clearance. So our students, a lot of them are returning workers. So especially we're a big aerospace area. So when a large aerospace manufacturer in an area actually starts to lay off lines, that's when a lot of students kind of come our way. So this last round of layoffs in the region really resulted in a lot of students actually with an understanding of industrial environments. You know, they weren't necessarily, you know, programming PLCs and HMI, but they're familiar with the culture, they're familiar with what they do and the significance of them and the how they're needed in order for that business to thrive. So a lot of them were really natural fits for where we're kind of going. So industry certifications, and a lot of our workers are already older. They've been in the workforce for a while, you know, they understand what it takes to, you know, hold a job and all those aspects, but we're also, you know, trying to mentor more high school students through our program as well, which is something we've kind of struggled with.
So the basis of the project itself has a credit for prior learning model built into it as well. For that very purpose, for prior military, to apply that credit for prior learning and then see where the gaps are and what do they need to do to get those.
And students come in with it, actually hold one of those certificates, they can actually do prior learning and get credit for that class.
Okay. Makes
So
sense.
small admin fee and then bippity boppity your next class.
Awesome.
Good.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.